Hello and welcome to another episode of the DigiTeacher. This week I'd like to talk about the whole issue of digital distraction. Now, students have been distracted during lessons since time immemorial. I'm sure during Socrates' dialogues there was someone staring out the window, not paying attention. And this is certainly true when I was a student, and it's still true today. People get distracted, and is it a problem? Well, it's part of life, really. We can't pay attention 100% of the time. Sometimes staring out the window gives you that little mental break that allows you to come back. So I'm not saying that distraction itself is necessarily a huge problem, but I think the scale of digital distraction is a problem. Digital devices offer a level of engagement with students that teachers simply cannot compete with. If a student is secretly watching a Netflix film under the table, then they're far less likely to flip back to the lesson than a student just looking out of the window, seeing a cow and following its progress across a field for a minute before coming back into the lesson. Teachers simply cannot compete with the level of engagement that a device can offer people. Now, being addicted to digital devices is a problem across society. We all know the phenomenon of people bringing their phones to the dinner table, what that does to kind of family organization and all of that. Before then, there was kind of watching TV during dinner, and this is a whole debate which has been going on for quite a while. But in its current form, the cell phone is probably the major culprit in offering something which takes us away from activities that we value, such as learning or communing as a family. So what can we do about it? Well, some people argue for a complete ban. We should be banning devices during school time because we as teachers simply cannot compete with them. And it's just too disruptive to lessons, and there's very little way of getting people back. Other people argue, well, we should be teaching people to deal with their levels of distraction. We should be teaching people how to avoid being distracted. I think I kind of fall into that camp, but I recognize that it's a really uphill battle. I've been a computer teacher for a long time, and therefore I teach in a classroom where students have to be on computers. But there are times when you have to teach kids things, and you want their eyes on your face while you're teaching them something, and then they must turn back to the computer and get on with doing it. And it's very hard. It's hard to compete with the level of distraction on the computer. Students tend to play games a lot. You secretly get on a game. When the teacher comes near, you minimize it. That goes on all the time. I am under no illusions as a teacher in a computer classroom that things are not being minimized the moment that I get near. And I have to build that into my lessons in a way, because I can't ban the computer. I can't say cell phones off, I don't want to see them. I can't say computers off, I don't want to see them. So I've thought a lot about digital distraction and what to do about it, and how to teach people to manage that in a way in which we're not saying a complete ban. If you ban cell phones, it becomes a problem. So we're a Microsoft school, and the way that accounts are reset is by sending a message to the user's phone. And so it's a big problem in a Microsoft school if you ban the phone, because then the student can't get the notifications which allows them to reset their account, and suddenly they can't get onto Teams, they can't get onto Word, and they might need that for the lesson. So I'm not in favor of a complete ban, but how do we teach people to manage it in a way that cell phones are not on the table when you're teaching something, when you don't want them to be on the table, but at other times maybe you do want students to be able to access the cell phone. So as an English teacher, for example, let's say I'm doing film study. So we've discussed film, different angles, different types of shots, different types of edit and things like that. And now I want to test that. Well, a fun way of testing it is doing a Kahoot. So I want the kids to be able to take out their phones at that moment and do the Kahoot. So how do we kind of manage all of that? One tool, I think, is the digital distraction traffic light. So the whole idea here is that you have times when students are not allowed to be using devices at all, times when they're using them for approved purposes, and then of course there are times when you want them to be able to use them quite freely. So let's have a look at that traffic light. So the whole idea behind this tool, and I actually had a web version at one time where you could actually have the red light, the amber light, or the green light showing, is that at any time during the course of a lesson, your classroom is in has a traffic light attached to it. So if the signal is red, then devices are not allowed at all. That's a period in which there should be nothing on the desk. All attention should be on whatever else is happening in the lesson. If it's amber, then you're using your device, but it's on task. So you're using your device to do a Kahoot quiz, for example, or to do note-taking or whatever it might be. But the state of the lesson is amber. If the state of the lesson is on green, then you can be using your device for whatever purpose. So this is in more self-directed tasks. So maybe a student is researching. And then you want them to be able to go online, find information and use whatever digital resources they have in whatever way that they see fit at that time. So that's the tool. How do I use it in the classroom? Well, as I say, at one point I had a web page. So if this was an issue, a particular issue, then I would put the web page up on my interactive board, and I had a little mouse click which could set the traffic light to be shining red, shining amber, or shining green with the text attached. And that's a signal at this point in the lesson. That's the state of play. You could have a poster in your classroom, and you point out the state is now red, the state is now amber, the state is now green. So you can use it in that way. And you might have a little kind of covering mask so that you can move, displaying only the bit of the poster that you want students to see. The lesson is now in green. You can use your devices quite freely. And once students have signed on to this, of course, you can. There are consequences. So you're allowed to have your cell phone with you, but it's in your pocket. We are now in a state of red. Your cell phone is out. I'm confiscating it, or whatever sanctions there are, demerits, or whatever things that your school uses for that kind of circumstance. And I think that's one way of kind of teaching responsibility. That you're not saying we're banning cell phones, you can't use them under any circumstances, but there are times when you can use them and times when you can't, and consequences. Now, of course, that allows you to have a situation where students can do verification for their Microsoft account. If there is a family emergency, if a student comes to you and says, look, I have to have my phone on at all times because I'm expecting a call, my gran is desperately sick, and my parents might be collecting me to go to the hospital, and whatever it is, there are occasions when you want to build in that responsibility in different ways. When that happens to me, when I have some kind of family emergency and I need to have my phone on, for example, I've had to call an Uber for my son because his phone isn't working, and it's lesson time, but I need to be monitoring that Uber call. And what I do is I explain to the class, this is what's happening, this is why I have my phone, and just a reminder, you can do the same. If you have an emergency, just have the courtesy of talking to me about it first so that I know why your phone is out. And I think that's another way of building the kind of trust and sense of responsibility that people have when using digital devices legitimately in a classroom. But is distraction always a bad thing? So in the pages of an online magazine, The Conversation, there's an article called "There are Challenges but Also Potential Benefits of Digital Distractions." It was published in 2022. And this article presents the idea that maybe there are some benefits, that there are definitely threats in digital distraction. That's absolutely the case. So the article explores the whole idea of maybe the benefits of attention snacking. So this is the idea that if we move our attention and toggle it between different tasks, then that might be beneficial. So quite clearly, digital distraction generally is a huge threat to our health and our ability to pay attention. But maybe if we have little breaks away, times when we are allowed to go on our devices and kind of snack on that digital engagement, that might have positive benefits for our ability to be able to attend properly when we come back to the task. So just like in most lessons, you have a kind of break in a long lesson, get up, stretch your legs, look around, walk around, come back in 5 minutes, and we'll carry on with the lesson. You might have kind of digital attention breaks. Does this idea, attention snacking, have merit? Well, I'm going to leave that as a kind of open question. But I hope you found this video interesting, and some of the ideas raised will lead you to think a little bit about how to manage digital distraction in your classroom. If you have thoughts about this, please let me know in the comments, and please like, share and subscribe so that you never miss another episode of the DigiTeacher.